Heston Blumenthal, Britain's most visionary chef, is on a mission impossible.
I am horrified at some of the slop that passes off as food and is served up in British institutions up and down the country.
Now Heston will be using his magic to tackle the problems that are defeating Britain's top industrial chefs.
I want them to rip up their recipe books and approach food and eating in a completely new way.
Whether high up in the sky...
2 more trays, please.
We would not have time to do this on board the aircraft.
or 20,000 leagues under the sea.
We've got £2.34 per man per day.
Less than a prison will get.
He'll face unique logistical difficulties.
The sharpest thing I can use on this plane for chopping is one of these.
And stubborn cooks who don't like change.
It's our way or no way.
This week, Heston will tackle the ultimate culinary challenge to reinvent airline food.
It's gross. Yeah, I don't really think that it's food.
British Airways, the UK's largest airline, has had one of its toughest ever years with strikes, volcanic ash and soaring fuel prices. Facing increasing competition from low-cost airlines, its bosses think the promise of exquisite food could set it apart from the rest.
I think it's a fantastic opportunity to really get stuck in to a good bit of scientific research.
At 35,000 feet, our taste buds struggle to work and food loses its flavour.
It's knackered, it's oxidised.
And in the air, you can't use pans or naked flames. There are only primitive ovens and not a kitchen in sight.
Look at my galley, look at the mess.
Absolute total chaos.
This is a Herculean challenge, because if it wasn't, somebody would have done this already.
I'm fascinated with airline food. Why do people eat food up in the sky that they never, ever pay for and enjoy on land?
Heston Blumenthal is famous for creating snail porridge and bacon and egg ice cream in his Michelin-starred restaurant in Bray. Now he's about to see if his scientific approach can transform food in the air.
Tackling airline food, I think, is a really fantastic opportunity to get right into the mechanics of eating in a pressurised cabin, eating up in the sky, because it's not normal.
Heston's challenge is with one of the biggest brands in Britain.
I mean, it's British Airways, one of the largest airlines in the world. I happen to be very patriotic, so if I can make a difference in the sky to BA's food, then that's really exciting. I think this could be the most exciting challenge that I've ever taken on.
To start with, Heston wants to find out what he's up against.
I'm off to Heathrow. I'm going to join the BA crew on a trip to Dubai and become a trolley dolly.
On his debut flight, he'll be working with senior air stewards Jackie and Simon, who prepare and serve the food on board.
What he's going to do, I've got no idea. To work in the environment we work in, it's not a kitchen, it's a galley. It's an aircraft. It's quite unique.
You're basically serving gourmet food in a metal tube, 7 miles above the earth. Good feat to do if you can do it.
Like all cabin staff, Heston needs some training.
What we're going to do on board. We do 6 weeks of training before we start. We've got about 10 minutes to show you all the basics you need. Yeah, crash course.
That it?
You up for it?
I'll give anything a go.
This is a big, heavy trolley and a confined space.
This is a potential lethal weapon.
Yes.
At
Especially in
altitude.
turbulence
It's made of
as well.
metal. When it's full, it's heavy. So you need to use a specific technique to move this trolley. It's called dip and drive. May sound silly, but it works. Using our big engines, Heston.
All here in
All in the left thighs. Slightly bend your legs, keeping your body upright. Grasp the trolley. Push with your legs and glide off.
And you're off.
And you're off. Break off, bend, and...
Yeah!
How was that?
Very good.
Excellent. Same technique, Heston.
Heston,
No,
we're
you
in an
can't.
aisle.
You can't
Everything's
turn
forward
it.
and backwards, no three-point turns.
Okay.
Push with your legs. Not quite. You've got the cabin crew wiggle, though.
Heston, Simon and Jackie are about to take off on a packed 7-hour flight to Dubai.
This is going to be an interesting experience.
Before getting to grips with the food, he helps out with the drinks.
So I've just lost the apple juice. Gin tonic, yes. Ice and lemon.
Then it's on to dinner. In the next hour, nearly 300 people need to be fed.
Minutes is 8. You've got to be quick, especially on a night flight. People don't want to hang around. They're starting to fall asleep already. You know, you serve people drinks and you give them food, they're asleep.
He's shocked to discover that the plane's ovens have only 2 temperature settings, high and low.
Hi, Heston, how are you?
Yeah, good, you?
Yeah, just throwing gravy all over the place at the moment. Did I get you there?
That's all right. These ovens, this system is exactly the same as in economy.
Exactly the
same
same as World
temperature,
Cup, yes. Same temperature, everything. Everything's cooked, everything's served under foil. It does. When we
Heston learns that all the food is pre-cooked before it's loaded on board, where it's then reheated.
Does it come into the plane like this?
It does. When everything comes like that, all we have to do is come and switch the ovens on. We have no control then how the food is cooked. We don't have the beauty of saying it's a medium rare steak or a well done steak.
What do you think about airplane food in general?
I think the standard of it all is very, very good when you think of the masses of people that we're catering for. There are a few difficulties that, you know, keeping things crispy is one thing. Because the ovens produce such a lot of steam, you'll probably see, if I lift this up, there's usually liquid dripping out of the bottom, and that's because of the steam that's generated. And obviously, anything that's covered in foil is never going to crisp.
So what do the passengers think?
Generally, it's pretty mediocre.
It always looks worse than it tastes, generally.
I noticed you didn't have any food. Was that because you're not hungry?
I just don't like it. I don't really like plain food.
The salad was insanely acidic. Like the actual dressing on it, I don't know.
Yeah, the dressing was disgusting, but the salad was alright.
The food has been given mixed reviews. What will Heston make of it?
You obviously doesn't look the most appetising dish in the world. I think it's quite dark. I mean, if you look, that's the picture of it, and that's it. The chicken is dry. I wouldn't expect anything else. This could also be something to do with the amount of time it has to sit in these hot ovens.
Even in club class, the creamy broccoli and olive gnocchi is barely recognisable.
I mean, look at the broccoli.
Yes.
This has already been cooked before it got on the
Yes, it
plate,
has.
and then it's sitting in there. It's pureed.
Yes. This is a challenge.
Yeah.
You're going to finish that later?
Do you want my hand or?
Yeah, politely refuse that one, Heston.
Yeah.
Surely things will be better in the moneyed luxury of first class. But even here, all the pre-cooked food is heated up in the same type of ovens.
Again, the biggest problem is that the fish is drying out. All the fish is cooked, isn't it?
Yeah.
All the fish arrives cooked. So it might be, I don't know yet, it might be the process before it gets here. If the fish has already been cooked quite heavily before it's here, it doesn't matter what these guys do, what equipment they've got, it's already been dried out.
It looks like one of the world's favourite airlines is finding it a struggle to serve the world's favourite food. Back in Bray, the scale of the job is dawning on Heston.
Holy crap. We've now committed to try and improve airline food across the board. This is a bit of a Herculean challenge, I think, because if it wasn't, somebody would have done this already.
Yeah, of course.
Heston Blumenthal has taken on a mission impossible to sort out the meals on Britain's biggest airline. His first flight has left him with food for thought.
I found that the fish and the meat was dry. It was very dry. The vegetables were mushy and they were overcooked. So I've got to go back one step and see the process that gets the food to the point at which it gets delivered to the plane. So I'm here in Heathrow. I've come to see Gate Gourmet, who make all the food for British Airways.
Gate Gourmet is the largest independent airline catering company in the world. Heston's come to visit their massive Heathrow food factory, where an army of chefs produce an astonishing 17,000 meals a day for BA. He wants to see if they're responsible for the dry, overcooked food he tasted. Gate Gourmet's executive head chef, Steve Walpole, leads a team designing and overseeing every single dish.
So how do I feel about Heston coming in? Yeah, a little bit nervous, a little bit unsure.
So this is where all the magic happens, is it?
Yeah, this is where we actually take Stephen's ideas and run them live.
So when a chef of his stature comes in, the biggest worry for me and probably my team will be the fact that, you know, we have, in our opinion, tried everything we possibly can within the constraints of what we have to work with.
All Steve's new dishes have to be approved by a British Airways tasting panel.
So, ladies and gentlemen, this is coq au vin.
Is it exciting enough? Is it hitting the right mark?
It's not dull, no, but it's not exciting.
If Heston wants to get anything adventurous on BA's menu, he'll have to get this panel on side.
So I want him to be creative, I want him to be innovative, but I don't want him to turn anybody off. That's really quite important. No snail porridge.
Back in the kitchens, Heston is investigating the steaks. He wants to find out why the meat he ate on the plane was so dried out and overcooked.
So what's happening here is the meat's just been browned. It's not been cooked, it's been browned. Those steaks at the moment have been taken off when they're still blue. So at this point, they're not overcooked. It's tender, it's juicy, very easy to chew. It's a nice piece of steak. But I've never had steak like that on an aeroplane.
He witnessed soggy, lifeless veg in the air. Will it be the same story here?
Christine's going to put the broccoli into the boiling water. They take them out of the boiling water, and over here, look, get plunged into here, which is cold water. So it immediately stops the cooking. It stops them becoming soft, overcooked, mushy, and grey. It's like a different world down here, from up there at least. The most shocking of all for me was the fact that the guys here do quite a lot of work to make sure the food leaves here in great condition. It's just that when it gets up in the air and gets served on the plane, the whole thing goes to pot. It's almost as if why on earth put all this effort into producing food like this to have it ruined in the aircraft? I just don't get it.
Does head chef Steve agree there's a problem?
To cut to the chase now, do you think this food tastes the same up in the air?
Yes.
Completely?
Completely. Flavours and taste-wise, I really don't believe it changes as much as people believe.
OK, another question. Would you say that the steak that leaves here is more or less juicy than the steak you get served on a plane?
Depends how long it's cooked for.
I know it does, but you're...
So that I can't answer the question then, can I?
So
I'm saying... So
therefore, you don't know that it tastes the same up there as down here. We're going to have to go and have a look.
OK.
If I'm to find the solution to the problem of flavourless, dry food on board, I've got to convince Steve that his food actually tastes worse on the plane. But surely the most important thing for a chef is how your food tastes. And just because your customers are 7 miles up in the sky, it doesn't mean that your responsibility ends in the kitchen.
It's crunch time. At 35,000 feet, will Steve agree with Heston that his food tastes worse in the air than on the ground? Heston has selected the steak dish he tasted at Gate Gourmet. It's been reheated in the onboard ovens.
So that Yorkshire pudding is a Yorkshire sponge. Does that leave Gate Gourmet as a sponge?
No, it leaves us, you know, they're all handmade in our little bakery.
I saw them, fluffy, light and crisp.
And actually, obviously in the reheat process, something's gone wrong. Will it still taste like Yorkshire pudding? I think so. Whether it's got the right texture, that's
all part of the taste. It's like having a biscuit that's soggy. should be crisp, you think it's stale. It's like having a fizzy drink that's flat. The beef that I saw in Gate Gourmet, those steaks I turned, did they look like this?
I think it tastes all right.
Is it the same as on the ground? It's knackered, it's oxidised, it's grey.
But it doesn't taste any different.
Steve may flatly refuse to acknowledge there's a problem. But Heston's already been working on a plan to cut out the reheating process entirely and instead cook from scratch in the air. It'll mean ripping up the BA rulebook.
Obviously, like this food's reheated.
Yeah, of course.
But when it comes to things like fish, I mean, fish dries out so easily on a plane. Why can't they take some raw fish onto the plane? The only thing I can think of is to take some food up into the air and stick it in the oven, see what happens to it.
We'll be allowed to do that.
Well, they have to let us.
Heston set one of his stoves to the same high temperature as a primitive aircraft oven. Now he wants to find out the best way to prepare the raw food so it can survive the extreme heat and remain as moist and tasty as possible.
Show me that way, which way, Heston?
He tries cooking one piece of salmon wrapped in a herb parcel, another that's been soaked in salt water, and one untreated.
We need to see which piece of salmon is the most moist and least overcooked when cooked in a hot oven that we cannot control the temperature of.
OK, Heston, that's the first salmon ready.
After they're cooked, he gauges the moisture level in each of the 3 pieces.
That fish is now very dry. It's dry and stringy. The safest one of all is taking fish lightly brined and putting it in the oven. It'll take about 7 minutes.
Heston's meat dish is steak with a parsley crust, which helps protect its moisture and flavour.
So you've got tons of parsley, garlic, butter, Dijon mustard, some breadcrumbs, seasoning, that kind of stuff.
And to guarantee an intense flavour, he adds a typically Heston touch.
So this is the magic ingredient. Imagine a wood fire in a nice old cottage that's the fire's gone out, and the next morning you have this really gentle sort of ash-like character to the smell. They managed to encapsulate that as an essential oil. So I'm going to add this to the herb crust. That's still got moisture. I think that's really important. You get that on a plane, you'll be pretty happy. And so that is what I'm going to aim for in the sky. And it's quite a simple dish. It's not an awful lot of work to plate it up. There's not too many ingredients there, so I'm sure this is well within their grasp.
Whether the BA staff can reproduce it at 35,000 feet is another matter. If Heston's idea works, it could revolutionise airline food. But if meals can be cooked from scratch on a plane, where would that leave Gate Gourmet's ground operations and its head chef, Steve?
I think one of the biggest worries was how is this going to impinge on what I do? You know, I am the senior executive chef, you know, I am the man that designs all these menus. Is doing this going to put me out of a job, basically?
Today, they'll be using business class as guinea pigs. But it's not long before things start to go wrong.
Where's the sauce?
Salmon's got it, it's here. The sauce is there.
So potatoes, where are the potatoes?
In there now.
Potatoes are in there. Right, what's with the onions clumping in here? A good learning point from this is the fact that we would not have time to do this on board the aircraft.
Swap.
So already absolute total chaos. You can see in here, we're already 20 minutes behind, half an hour behind. The oven temperature's dropped, so there's no space to do anything. The prep's not kind of sorted. We've got to get the veg heated up. The sauce is too cold. Got to get even the salad picked. I haven't even shown them how to put the food on the plate yet. And I think passengers are waiting. They're waiting for food, and I've also been brought the sharpest thing I can use on this plane for chopping is one of these. So to say I'm in the CAC, understatement.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is Jack Heston, your CSD speaking. Just to inform those passengers in the club cabin who've chosen to dine from Heston Blumenfeld's menu today, we will be about 15 to 20 minutes waiting time. Thank you. Cheers.
Okay, guys, fish is ready.
Finally, 1 hour after the passengers should have been served, the first meal goes out.
At ease, Jackie. First of the steaks.
Six.
We've got one more salmon in there.
And we've got one more steak you're waiting for as well.
The salmon is really excellent.
It's much better than I would normally get on any British Airways flight. Very good. It was outstanding. It was like going to a top restaurant. It was absolutely superb.
For the 30 passengers served, it was worth the wait. But it's been chaos in the galley.
Oh my God.
Thanks, Chef. That was class.
What do you think about that, Chef?
I've not had a service like that, I reckon, for 10 years.
I
was spoiled.
Just never known a service like it.
And 4 of us serving it, not 1.
You wouldn't have made it without us.
Look at my galley, look at the mess.
I would say this was what you would call carnage.
Back to the drawing board.
We have categorically, in some ways, failed dismally, but also in other way, with the actual quality of the food that came out, we've sort of passed.
It is incredibly frustrating because I was pretty confident about this. I was pretty excited. I just thought it's going to make a big change and this is going to be a start of something like really major. I hadn't banked for the oven, I hadn't banked for just the general system, I hadn't banked for the space, and banked for the amount of people that have to produce the food for the full business class. So all in all, it's frustrating and it's pretty disappointing. I thought I was going to come away from today with a real solution, but I'm going to have to do some serious rethinking.
Heston's big idea to cook food from scratch on a plane caused total chaos.
OK, tell you what, someone can get that sauce into another container.
Do you want me to get the steaks out?
There's clearly good reason for Gate Gourmet to cook their meals on the ground. Nevertheless, Heston still needs to persuade head chef Steve that at altitude big changes occur to both the food and to our taste buds.
I know the ovens contribute massively to the problem, but they're not the only issue. I found some fascinating scientific research that states that altitude, the pressurised cabin in the plane, seriously affects your ability to taste the food. And there's one other issue that's really important, and that's humidity. At 30,000 feet, it's really dry. And I've got to find a way to show Steve just how this affects the taste of his food in the sky. I think I've got an experiment that will do just the trick. It involves one of these, a humidity meter, and sticking one of these right up your nostrils. I think we do not perceive taste food the same in this environment as you do on the ground. I think there's several reasons for it. One of them, I read about the lack of humidity on an airplane. So you're not going to be thinking, well, what's that got to do with anything? The humidity on the ground at Heathrow was 56. So the humidity here is 20.8. To give you an idea, the Sahara is about 26. So it's pretty dry.
Yeah, that's okay.
Heston wants to show Steve that the cabin air dramatically reduces our ability to taste and smell by drying out our noses.
Right, so here we've got a glass of wine, and this is a nasal douche. A couple of jets of this up the nostrils, moisturise them, clear them, and the same wine should taste better after a nasal douche.
Should?
Yeah. Oh. You got nasal seepage.
And your point is?
It's fruitier.
I'm going to disagree. Because although there is a slight difference, I don't think, for me personally, it makes the dramatic difference in the reaction I see from you.
I know you're not 100% convinced, but I am going to try my best to convince you more that this environment changes the taste and flavour of our food.
With Steve still doubting that anything can be done to improve the taste of his food in the air, Heston's got a new plan. Back at Bray, he decides he'll incorporate all the latest scientific research on how our perception of taste and of smell changes at altitude in his next onboard service.
For me, the most exciting thing of all about eating is that it's the only thing we do that involves all of the senses. So whether it's the eyes, the nose, the mouth, the ears, the brain, the memory, this is what makes it so fantastic. And I want to harness that and incorporate that into my next trial menu on the plane. But I want to serve a meal that is cold. And that way, I'm not going to have the problems I had before with the oven.
Heston's idea is to combat the dulling of taste buds at 35,000 feet by serving a cold tray using ingredients designed to tantalise all the senses. He starts by smoking one of the oiliest fish, mackerel, which keeps its moisture well.
The mackerel's sitting on top, lemon salad. It's pickled lemons. And anything that's acidic, it makes your mouth water. And that's a good thing. It's quite dry up there.
Next, Heston wants the passengers to awaken their taste buds with gum strips covered in green tea and lime. He adds a touch of magic, a pill that turns into a scented hand towel.
What a great way to start your food.
For a playful touch, he makes wine gums with real wine. Next, a highly flavoured ice-cold soup of gazpacho.
I want everything to be fresh, vibrant, because I think that's one of the things you really do lose up in the sky.
A seafood jelly with trout roe will pop in the mouth and burst with a fresh taste of the sea.
So, this is an orange and beetroot jelly. But what looks like the orange is beetroot. And what looks like the beetroot is orange. We taste with our eyes. So what we see will send messages to the brain to tell us what we think our food's going to taste like. And sometimes it can be so powerful that by changing the colour, you can make the food taste completely different. Food can be fun, and it should be fun. And I think this high-altitude bento tray does that perfectly.
The cold tray will need some minimal preparation on board, but Heston thinks it'll be more straightforward than his last attempt. He sends all the ingredients over to Gate Gourmet to be loaded onto his next long-haul flight.
It's like a totally different world. A whole manner of weird and wacky, wonderful things. It's like a jigsaw puzzle. I don't know what to say, really. I'm slightly nervous, I think is the only thing I can really say.
If the bosses at BA decide Heston's high-altitude bento box is the way forward, Steve would have to produce 17,000 of these a day.
It's a lot of work in it. I think he's, I think he's out to stitch me up, isn't he? Well and truly.
That, look, Gate Gourmet on a jumbo jet. My food is going in there. That's exciting, isn't it? So I'm about to get on a flight to New York. I want it to be fun, I want it to be interactive. And I'm hoping, if this works, BA, if they're visionary enough, are going to run with this idea, and this could influence airline food going forward.
After hearing about the chaos on the last flight, this time members of the BA tasting panel are on board too.
The first flight was interesting, a little ambitious. I think they struggled to do some of the things that were asked.
I think he ended up wearing most of the food because it's quite a difficult task, so I would like to see on this flight if he manages to do a better job of it, like our staff do.
Salad, that's all sorted.
Heston's on a night flight, so there's only 40 minutes before lights out to get all the meals ready and served.
Heston, we're really to get a move on now.
OK, Toby, right,
We've really pushed the time.
Another 3 or 4 trays out right now.
We've got about another 12 to do.
Mind your back.
On the ground, the last-minute touches like coating the gum strips in lime and green tea powder and pouring the ice-cold soup were easy. But in the confined space at 35,000 feet, these same touches are slowing them down.
OK, we need to spruce that up.
Right, we've got caramel sauce missing off this one.
Vinaigrette over the...
Why did you do that?
We've got a real time issue because in 20 minutes they're turning the lights down. Everyone's actually going to go to sleep. So we can't serve food any later than that.
Pick that up.
It feels like the Krypton factor with food gone horribly wrong, actually.
With the food over an hour late, Toby from the BA tasting panel has to get up and help.
From a logistical point of view, this is an absolute nightmare. This would never work doing the meal service. Normally this would not be acceptable on British Airways.
The passengers and the BA panel finally get their food.
Prepare to be delighted, we hope. You have got a tray in front of you with 13 experiences. You need to just turn your...
Before they try anything, every passenger is required to nasal douche.
What we need you to do with this is just squirt it up your nostril. Push it right in.
And to make it a full visual and auditory experience, Heston has made a film guiding the passengers through the entire bento box.
Welcome to my high-altitude bento box. You will see before you a tray of boxes and containers.
Enjoy.
Now sit back and enjoy your meal.
If this airline serves this food on its flights to New York, we will all be traveling back and forth to New York just for the food.
This was really nice. This was much better than I was expecting.
The passengers love it, but what about the BA tasting panel?
I think there are a couple of things in there that could be really nice signatures for us that we can bring all the way through. Nasal douching isn't one of them. It was.
Do you not like that?
No. Heston, nasal
I think
douching...
you might be underestimating your passengers.
Waiting an hour and a half to be served wasn't good enough.
We need to be able to get the food out within a certain amount of time to a full cabin.
Yeah.
I thought it was going to be easy because it was cold.
A dejected Heston realises he's failed yet again.
All I can say is it was a total nightmare to get that food out there. And it just highlights the fact that you've got to make sure that any food that is served requires the minimum last-minute attention. Otherwise, it's unworkable.
Simon and Jackie tried to lift his spirits.
In all my years of flying, I've seen some customers being delighted by food we've served them in First and in Club World and in World Traveller, but I've never seen reactions like that.
No, fantastic.
Really?
Yeah. Your challenge is now to make that workable across a fleet that serves thousands of people every day, consistently.
And that's the problem.
Leave that one with you.
That's the problem.
British Airways has decided to give Heston one final chance. But if his ideas are to be rolled out across the airline, there's one man he must win over.
I'm convinced I'm onto something with the whole senses at altitude and the way that we perceive taste and flavour in a plane. So I've got one more experiment I need to do, but what's so important is I have to get Steve on side. Because if he's not behind me, if he doesn't agree with this, he's never going to take it forward. And ultimately, this is going to be down to him.
To prove once and for all that taste changes in the air, Heston takes Steve to a research lab where there's an altitude chamber that can reproduce the humidity and pressure in a plane.
So I know you're probably wondering why on earth I've dragged you to this university, but I know that you're not convinced about taste changing in the plane.
I'm still saying no, so if you've got an experiment and you can prove me wrong, I'm willing to give it a try.
Are you ready for this?
Oh, yes.
Right.
There are 5 tastes in the human palate, and Heston has put 3 of these into colour-coded bottles at increasing strengths. The blue ones are salty, the red ones are sweet, and the green bottles contain a savoury taste called umami. At what strength can Steve detect each of these tastes? First under normal conditions, and then inside the chamber under airplane conditions.
This is playing havoc with my senses. This is not good. I think that's the umami. And I'll take it back, that's salt big time.
So, outside, out there, in normal sea level conditions, you detected salt, bottle number 3. In here, it wasn't until you got to bottle number 6 that you realised it was salt. So you could say that your ability to taste salt has been reduced by half in airplane conditions.
It's exactly the same result with the sweet taste.
Or stronger, or the same?
Well, okay, yeah, that one's, I think that one's about the same.
It's a big difference.
Steve can hardly believe his own taste buds.
It's not you get it wrong at all. It's basically, this environment has done something to your taste buds. And I think for the first time, I can say you're convinced.
Yeah, you know what, yeah, categorically now, my mind has been changed. I'm still gobsmacked is the only way to say it, really. And it's nice, really, because if you're ever going to be proved wrong, Heston's the man to prove you wrong.
So at last, he is now convinced that his food really does taste different on the plane.
But the experiment did more than just win over Steve.
No, that's umami.
OK, next one.
It also showed that the savoury umami taste was detectable at the same level, both outside and inside the chamber, a vital clue for Heston's next step.
I think there's a way that we can look at umami and boost that up in the food, because that doesn't have any health issues with it. I haven't done this before, and I think this is really exciting.
That the umami taste stays the same at altitude is a breakthrough. With Steve finally on side, Heston's invited him to Bray.
We have to try and restructure the recipes to put those taste buds back up in the sky. Now, I understand you can't whack loads more salt in it. You're spending enough time trying to reduce salt in meals. But we can definitely up the umami.
Heston's solution for great-tasting airplane food is a menu high in umami.
So here's a range of foods that contain umami. Soy sauce, probably the most famous one. The tomato is high in umami. Tomatoes and parmesan is a classic one. So the Italians have been doing this for years with pizza. It's those sorts of ingredients that I think could make some of the food taste bigger, have a bigger mouthfeel up in the sky, and compensate for this depression in salt taste.
Using umami-rich ingredients, can Heston reinvent a classic British dish?
Shepherd's pie is one we've had a problem with, either with how it's dished or actually getting the right flavour profile. Knowing, you know, we've been backwards and forwards with that particular dish.
Just with the stuff that's here, parmesan in the potato, bit of horseradish in the potato as well, mushrooms. Shepherd's pie, Lancashire hot pot, quite traditionally have mushrooms in them. So we incorporate some mushrooms, but in particular some shiitake, maybe dry shiitake, that have a lot of umami. And, a bit more radical...
No way.
Seaweed. We can make the world's first shepherd's pie with seaweed. It won't taste of the sea, it won't taste the seaweed, it'll just have this massive mouthfeel.
You know what, if we could produce a British Airways classic dish recipe that then becomes, you know, just a #1 dish, I think everyone's a winner.
Back at Gate Gourmet, Steve gets straight to work, cooking up Heston's revolutionary umami recipe, using seaweed, sweetbreads, parmesan cheese, horseradish relish, and plenty of Worcester sauce.
That's
That's a bit of theatre for you, isn't it, eh? Bit of flambe. I didn't quite expect that.
On a flight tomorrow, this reinvented classic will be rolled out across economy and to the BA tasting panel. Steve's invited Trolley Dollies Simon and Jackie for a last-minute tasting.
OK. Lady and gentlemen, here we have the finished shepherd's pie mix. Really good. The mustard, you get a lot of the...
You can taste everything. You taste the rosemary, the mint, really subtle background with the mint.
But with just hours to go, Heston's new recruit is wobbling.
My issue is, will the customer get it? Will they think it's too busy? Will they think it's too much? Personally, I would be worried about putting that on my menu because of just the fact that there's quite a lot going on.
Heston has one final opportunity to crack airline food.
It is his last chance. I'm very keen to hear what he's got to say and if we can, look at his recommendations and see how we can implement them. But they've got to be practical and they've got to work.
We're going to get on board that flight now, and I want to be really wowed by what he's learnt, and I know he really appreciates how hard it is to do it on board, but it's about keeping our customers happy and not leaving them hungry.
Everything hangs on Heston's reinvented classic, seaweed shepherd's pie.
I thought it was going to be difficult, but I didn't think it was going to be as hard as this. I didn't think the challenges and the limitations were going to be as great as they have been. The food offering today is what I'm saying to BA is the direction they need to go down.
On this final flight, Heston's meal is being rolled out across economy. If it goes down well, it could provide the starting point for a scientific revolution in airline food.
OK, so sit down hot.
He's determined not to be beaten by the primitive ovens. Most BA dishes are reheated for up to 40 minutes, but his pies are going in for precisely 15.
As long as you know the temperature of your ovens and the door stays shut, the food will take X amount of time to be ready. Once the food's ready, if you turn all the ovens onto low, they can stay there and it won't dry out. So if somebody wants to wait for an hour for their food, it's still going to be OK. I think that's an easier way than suggesting you invest in a load of new ovens.
With only minutes to go before the food is served, Steve is feeling the pressure.
This is quite a big moment, actually. It's still a little nervous about it.
I mean, if you think about it, all the chaos we've caused on the plane so far, all the time in pressurised environments, all that development comes down to this. Right, I think we're ready to serve now, aren't we?
I think so, let's get it out.
OK, ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
I'm ready.
Right, Jackie and Simon, you're serving from the back. B and C. OK,
I'm
on my way.
To help passengers maximise their sense of smell and taste, each umami-rich seaweed shepherd's pie is served with a nasal douche. Will the taste be overpowering, or was Steve worrying for nothing?
We just thought we'd come along and see some feedback about what you thought about the tray and the food.
Because I had some of the normal food, it felt a lot stronger taste. It felt kind of quite sweet and sticky kind of flavour to it, but without being really, really overpowering.
I have to say, it was absolutely delicious. I even scraped the bowl with my spoon, it was that good.
We love the shepherd's pie, really tasty, full of flavour. It tasted like a bit more like a home-cooked dish that had like real ingredients in. You could actually pick out flavours rather than just a mush.
Yesterday I had absolute reservations that was going to be too much. And you know what? That is... Brilliant. Just a drop.
But if Heston's seaweed shepherd's pie is to make it permanently onto the BA menu and be served to millions of passengers across the world, it needs approval by the BA tasting panel.
So how do you get on with that?
What you've managed to do, which is what we've been trying to crack for ages, is get flavours, good, strong flavours, to work in the air. And you've combined something really well to make that work. So I'm not quite sure what that was, but yeah, it was a tasty dish.
The flavours were so prominent that it did make you think, is there a big chunk of salt in here? And the fact that it isn't is fantastic to know.
Yes,
that.
it was just trying to show you guys, look,
Yeah, I get it.
this is what you can do. But it's still a shepherd's pie, but it's like a shepherd's pie on steroids.
After all the ups and downs, the mission's been a resounding success. To help BA further transform their food, Heston has 2 final recommendations.
You need somebody on a plane to recognise when something's getting dry or overcooked or whatever. It's also the fact that you need to taste the food either in the air or understand what's happened to the food from a taste point of view. So when you taste it on the ground, you know that it's going to need bulking up.
Yeah, we can definitely try and incorporate all of this into our development going forward.
I have to say, I've done pretty well considering I thought you were going to come up with something that people just wouldn't choose on a menu.
Hang on.
I'm going to say, you are the man that's helped us believe in ourselves. So for me, I just got to say a big thank you because it's been a revelation.
When it boils down to it, Heston, and I think I speak on behalf of myself and Jackie, to say really what a great pleasure it's been for you. Are you sure we couldn't get Gary Rhodes?
Where's the door handle? I'm so excited about where we are with this. Basically, there is a solution. It still needs a lot of work. There's not only a solution, there is, I can see possibility for British Airways to lead the world in airline food, to revolutionise the way that we serve and eat food on a plane, and that is so exciting, but it's down to them to take this forward.
In next week's Mission Impossible, Heston is on board a Navy nuclear submarine.
Oh my God.
That is horrendous. I'd rather not eat anything than eat that.
I suppose it's the first time for everything.
And that's next Tuesday at the same time. Saturday at 9, join Kelly Brook as she counts down the stars who've boosted their fame by getting their kit off. Celebrity Naked Ambition. And next tonight, Libby's slipping through Frank's fingers in Shameless.